All right. Well, let's start. Thank you all for joining us to this webinar today. My name is Pierrick Martel. I'm in charge of product marketing at Centreon. Today, we will discuss migrating your Centreon platform from one operating system to another one. And this is because most of you are using CentOS 7 and is becoming end of life. So I am joined today with Jacques Silband, who's the Director of Professional Services at Centreon. Welcome, Jacques.
Hello, everybody.
And with Tanguy Charles, who's our most expert on this subject as part of the Professional Services team. Welcome, Tanguy. Who's muted, so he said welcome to everybody, I think, but
yeah, that's right.
All right. So it's no surprise to anybody, but CentOS 7 will be fully end of life by end of June 2024. There will be no more security patches on this operating system. It happens that about 70% of Centreon platform are still running with CentOS 7 or Enterprise Linux 7, which is the same. Our latest software release, 2304, from last month, actually does not support Enterprise Linux 7 or CentOS 7. You must have a newer version of this operating system. So basically your mission now, you have a few months or 12 months to migrate your Centreon platform from CentOS 7 or whatever you are running to a more recent and supported Linux operating system, which is either Enterprise Linux 8 or 9, or some Alma Linux or Oracle Linux equivalent, which are the same but free of charge, or move altogether to the Debian distribution, and that would be Debian 11. So this webinar is about knowing everything to smoothly migrate your Centreon platform. You may ask questions using the question and answers tool on the right-hand side of your screen, or you may also ask them in the room chat. It's easier for me if it's in the question and answers tool. And we will answer these questions at the end of the presentation. So we'll present for about 40 minutes, and then we will answer all your questions. All right. First thing first, what, how, and this is our expert Tanguy, who will go ahead and explain everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's get started. So in order to do a proper migration, you have 3 questions to ask yourself. So first of all, what do we want to migrate, how to migrate, and what are we going to eat tonight? That's probably the most important question. So in order to know what's going to be migrated, you need to understand that Centreon is made of 2 major components, which are the configuration. So you are obligated to migrate it, otherwise it's just a fresh install. And then you have your history, your monitoring history, and this one is optional, and that's important to know that. We then have some other important things, such as the plugins or scripts that you are using in order to have your monitoring. And then other very little things, such as icons and some specific configurations for PHP, for example. Those are not very complicated, so we will not get into details for that. Okay, so in order to know which method we are going to use to migrate, you need to understand why or why not you want to keep some history, for example. So to give you a rough idea about that, what is the monitoring history? This part is made of your graphics. You also have the events that happened during the year, for example. And by events, I mean if your ping service, for example, went from warning to critical one day, it is going to be stored somewhere in Centreon. And this is one event. And you also have the configuration actions that are stored and that are part of the history. So, for example, you have one user that has modified one service a few months ago, and you'll be able to get that information. So, if those information are important to you, you need to keep them. Otherwise, maybe that's not that important. So the benefits of keeping the history is to have an ISO migration. And you won't have to ask yourself, I've gathered this information, but this one I didn't want it, so maybe something is not working because of that, I don't know. And you just do not have those issues. So that's kind of cool to keep the history. But on the other hand, keeping the history is a major drawback in terms of time, meaning that the operation is going to be much longer. So you need to keep that in mind. And by much longer, I also mean that it's going to be a bit more difficult. Just a little bit.
Obviously.
Okay, so now that we know that, the big question is how to migrate. And that's going to be a bit more technical now. So to me, there are 5 possible methods. You have what we call the double run, the standard one. We will see that's the most appropriate one. You also have the double run, but doing what we call the CRAPI export. CRAPI is a command line interface for Centreon that allows you to do some configuration, such as adding new hosts, new services, and so on. You then have the brutal way. This is my personal favorite, and you'll understand why it is brutal, but that's the best one. Then you have what we call the Nagios to Centreon, which is a small script that can help you do your migration. In fact, I talk about that, but this is not useful in our case because it is mostly used to migrate some very old Centreon platform or even other tools that are based on Nagios. And for the curious one, you could create your own method that is the ChatGPT over BCTP protocol. Of course, everyone know that. Okay, so let's jump onto the benefits and that each method have. So first of all, if the answer to the question, do you need to keep your history? Then you only have 2 possible methods, the standard one and the brutal one. And then you have this little drawback about the brutal method, is that you have your service that must be shut down at at one time. So you need to keep that in mind, but it's still the coolest way. And the both the standard one and the brutal one are compatible with Centreon modules such as Centreon MBI and MAP, for example, and they keep every data that you have. So that's an ISO migration. So that's cool. The other two one, export using CRAPI and Nagios to Centreon, doesn't allow you to keep the data histories. They are not compatible with every Centreon module, and they don't keep all the configuration either. So they are far from being perfect. And having said that, I won't advise you to use them. So in the next slide, I'm only going to talk about the standard one and the brutal one. Okay. So, like, oops, I have a bit of latency, so sorry for the jump into the slides.
We are good.
Okay.
That's the right slide. Slide 11, how to migrate. Let's talk about databases.
Yeah, it's not displayed on my screen, but
This is
okay.
10, this is 11.
Okay, so the 11 one is not displayed on my screen, but I'm going to be to do that on based on memory. So okay, first of all, you have the databases. Okay, I see the the slide now. Perfect. So you have one database management system that is called MariaDB that we use with Centreon. And this database management system is hosting two databases for Centreon. You have one that is called Centreon that is hosting your configuration, and you have one that is called Centreon Storage that is your history. Okay, and the two methods that we will use to migrate this database are using for the standard one a tool that is called MySQL dump, and that is shipped with MariaDB when we install it. Okay. Sadly, this tool is not suited to migrate a huge amount of data, and Centreon storage stores a lot of data, meaning that we need to use some other SQL queries in order to gather all the needed data. Okay, and that's why I don't like it, because it's quite complicated to do that and quite time consuming also. And on the other hand, you have the brutal way, and the brutal way is quite simple. You do not have to use any tool such as MySQL dump. You just need to stop your database and copy the file from one server to another. So that's quite easy and quite fast if your network bandwidth is fast enough. Okay, so once you know that, it's easy to do your migration. You have the database that is migrated, that was easy, and now you have the plugins. And you have two important things to know about that. First, you have Centreon that is creating its own plugins that are made in Perl. And obviously, we are going to assure you that they are going to work on your new platform. And on the other side, you have what we call community plugins that are the ones that are not made by Centreon. And obviously, we can't assure you that they are going to work. They are not made by us, so we don't know. But we can give you some hint about that, and we can still reassure you about the fact that it's not going to be very hard. So first of all, you have mostly four languages that are used to write plugins: Perl, Bash, Python, and C or C++. So Bash is very simple, and you shouldn't be afraid to move one Bash script to one operating system to another. Perl is a language that doesn't move that much, so you shouldn't have that many breaking chains. I could even say that you won't have any breaking chains, which is not the case for Python. That is um, a quite popular programming language, and with the version 2 and version 3, there are many breaking chains. But since it's very popular, it is well packaged, so shouldn't be that hard. And C and C++, well, it goes fast. We can have some problem, and we will see that in the following table, which explain a bit of what you can face in the problem side and which solutions are available to you. So first of all, Bash, very easy, best language in the world, should work, plug and play. Okay. Perl, the most known issue are the missing dependencies, and that's a very specific language, so they are not necessarily available as a package. So you will probably need to compile them by hand if they are not available as packages. Well, it's not very hard. It can be a bit time consuming, but should be easy enough. Python is a bit specific. You have two versions of Python, and on the newer operating system, they are both installed, probably. And well, it can give you some trouble. You just need to specify that you want to use most of the time Python 2, because scripts are being made using Python 2. And about dependencies, you can have the same issue than with Perl, but the difference is that you most probably have packages for that. And the last option, C and C++, well, um, either they are available as packages and everything is going to be fine, or they are not, and you do not have access to the source code and you won't be able to compile them by hand, so they won't work. And the only possibility that you have is to find a new plugin that does the same thing. Okay. So that was
Again,
right.
this is just for community plugins or the plugins you have developed.
Yeah.
All the plugins that Centreon provides are supported on the newer operating system, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've seen the plugin part, the database part, so most important one, then you have people that are using Centreon modules such as map and MBI. I'm going to talk about them because they are the only modules that require a specific server for each one. So you have the map server. The map server is just a simple application with a database. The database is very light, so you can just use the standard double run method that is going to use a MySQL command. That's very easy, very fast, and it shouldn't be a problem. On the other side, you have the MBI server. That is also just an application with a database. But the difference with the map server is that the database might be very huge. I'm talking about terabytes of data. So you can't use the MySQL dump command. And you need to use the brutal way, in fact. That's the only possible method, well, the best way, at least. The reason is that even though you need to stop the BI server to perform this method, it's not an issue because the BI server is not working every time, every second of the day. So you don't care about having to stop it at one time just to copy some files from one server to another. So just do it. It's not that important to shut down the database for that. And for the one that have some high availability on their server. So high availability is the architecture with two central server and maybe two databases server for the central if they are on a remote server. So the idea to migrate such a complicated architecture is quite simple. You just need to use the brutal way, in fact, because the brutal way is going to shut down your Centreon. Okay, but in this situation, you have two Centreon. So you just need to shut down the one that is not the master. So you just shut down the slave, so the secondary server. And you perform the brutal way, meaning that you copy and paste the database file while it is shut down, of course, and it's easy. Obviously, you need to build a new high availability architecture with the new operating system, so that takes quite some time, but the migration process on itself is quite easy. And the last kind of server that we have here at Centreon, the collectors, so the pollers. You have two things to remember about that, just two things. Well, we've talked about the plugins just before, and now I just want you to remember that you have two files to remember. So the retention.dat file and the status.tit file. Those files contain some very important information. In fact, only the retention one is storing some very, very important information. And this information is your downtimes and your acknowledgements. So if you don't if you don't transfer this file from the old collectors, old pollers to the new one, you are going to lose all your downtimes and acknowledgements. So that's not what people want most of the time, I would say. Perhaps someone I don't know, but I'm keep searching for that people. Okay, so you have that, and then you have the status dot file. This one is not that important. The information that is stored is not a breaking issue. It is going to store the initial state of your services and host, for example. So let's say you have a paying service that is critical. This information is stored inside that, and when the monitoring engine on your poller is starting, it is going to check this information to send it to the central server. And without it, the service is going to be in the pending state in Centreon, which is not that important because it is going to be checked let's say in 5 minutes. So you
Yeah.
will get your information, but the drawback is that the critical state is going to be sent as a new critical state, meaning that it is going to be in the critical state since 1 second, for example, while in fact it was critical since 2 months. So you need to remember that. And the issue on my side for that is that it is painful to troubleshoot some issues when the duration of the state is not the real one. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we have the last step in the migration process is the IP address issue. Should we keep the old IP addresses or should we use new ones? On the Centreon side, we don't care at all of that. About that, but on your side, it is going to be a very important decision that you need to do. And to help you doing that, I'm going to show you the benefits and the disadvantages of each method. So first of all, most of our customers are going to keep the old IP addresses. The reason is that it is too complicated for them to do new firewall rules in order to allow Centreon to do the polling, or even to just for the installation with the repositories and such problems. You also have the authorization when you are going to communicate using SNMP or NRPE or things like that. So that's too much work for them. And most of the time, they are going to just use the old IP addresses. And the other method, which is getting new IP addresses for the new platform, the idea is to have a very real double run method, meaning that at no time you are going to have any service cutoff moment on your old platform, because you won't even have to switch IP address, so you won't have to stop the old platform. So that's the only, in my opinion, advantage of having new IP addresses. Okay. Um, okay. Now that it is stated, I will finish and give you some little tools that are very useful to troubleshoot your problems. So first of all, you need to know that any problem in IT is because of the network, okay? That can be an application issue or a system issue, never. So first of all, to troubleshoot a network issue, you need to know the netcat command. Some people use telnet. I prefer netcat, but you can still use telnet if you want. So the netcat command that I'm providing you there is here to test some connection. You can test TCP connection, UDP connection, so that's the best tool to do that. You can even do some test by listening on a specific port with this tool, so that's very cool. Then you have the nmap one that is useful to list the listening port on a server, or well, at least the one that you can see. So that can be cool to check if there is a missing firewall rule, and things like that. Yeah, not easy to say for French people. Then you have the SS command, which is the new version of netstat. This one is cool to just troubleshoot the listening port, for example, and establish connection on your Centreon server. So that was very specific to the network part, and the monitoring is mostly based on the SNMP protocol. To help you troubleshoot that, you should use the SNMP work command. And what I'm telling people to do is just to try to gather the system description information, because that's the most basic one. And if this one is not working, you won't have any working plugin. So first of all, try with that. And last but probably not least, most of the monitoring nowadays, well, part of it, technologies goes to this way is to monitor using API, and so through HTTP protocols. And for that, you should use the curl command. It is very useful, not that easy to use, but very important. Um, for example, at the beginning of the week, we had an issue on a customer side with a BI server that wasn't working. And the curl command helped us to understand that the BI server was trying to communicate with itself using the localhost address. And for a reason, it was going to communicate with the proxy server. And the proxy server wasn't doing what we want, obviously, because it shouldn't be involved in this process. And only the curl command helped us to find that. So that's a cool command, not that easy, but cool. And lastly, you have the OpenSSL command. So I'm talking about HTTP API, which is fine, but HTTPS is much better. And it can add a new layer of difficulty when you are doing some monitoring or new installation, migrations, and such operations. So you need to know this one, the OpenSSL command that allows you to check the certificate part of the server that you are trying to reach. And you will have many information, such as the name of the server for which is delivered the certificate, the protocol that should be used, such as TLS 1.2, TLS 1.1, for example, and so on. So very nice tool. You could get this information from your web navigator if you have access to the website, but that's not necessarily the case. So think about that. And that's all for my little tools that can help you on a daily basis.
Great.
And
The
to
third
finish,
question.
yeah, the last question, the most important one. What are we eating tonight? So if you have no idea, here is a small list that I can give you.
All right. Thank you, Tanguy. So you can still ask your questions either in the question and answers tool or the room chat. There's a couple of questions already, and we will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. For now, I want Jacques to talk to us about professional services at Centreon and how you could help everybody migrate their platform. So that's your time, Jacques.
Thank you, Pierrick. My name is Jacques Silband. I joined Centreon since a few months. Just starting about my career, I started my career as a developer in the beginning of my studies, and to finish to become a manager of teams. And I'm here, I see, to talk about the service offer. So let's get started by the agenda. Firstly, I will want to take time to discuss to explain you what is the professional services. After that, we will discuss about the service offer. Firstly, we will start by a definition of what is the professional services in Centreon. Professional services is a team, firstly, with key competencies and key people that permit to provide you solution in order to ensure that your installation is really perfect and do not have some trouble on it. So our mission is to get to monitor it faster by removing all your constraints on the technical and the functional part, and also to assist you on your project. If you need expertise about an installation and configuration, we are available to help you to set up it. One thing, it's share best practice. On the documentation, you don't have all the information required on your context, and it's really important when we are on an installation to give you all the feedback, all the elements you need in order to fix a trouble or to make an installation. Another point, it's advice about new feature. What is it? You know that Centreon, each year we have a new release that permits you to have more features on your solutions. And the idea about the advice is to give you also some feedback, what we can keep on this feature in order to help you to monitor your equipment. And the last point is have a platform always up to date. That is really important because when you have a platform always up to date, you have more functionality and you have some reactivity on the support because you have a Centreon up to date. On the next slide, I will propose you a solution that we can propose you on the professional services. The first one, you understood that on the technical and the functional part, assistance, and for the boss part, we try to package it on a catalog of services. The catalog of services permit you to give you some adapted solutions like an audit, installation, and migration that permit to complete all you wish. We have also another service called Customer Success Journey. It's a seamless relationship. It's a kind of contract between Centreon and you that permit you to have a platform always up to date. And also the key people, technical account manager, customer success manager, that help you, that assist you on your project, on your platform. If you have some issues, you have some question, if you have some project to make with us, we are here with you to help you. All these services is provided by Centreon and not only Centreon, because we have also our partner to help us to manage all your projects. One point is really important. It's when you use the solution, you have to be trained on it. So we propose you two types of trainings. The first one is 100% e-learning to train yourself at your own pace. The idea is to connect on the platform that permit to use some module and to validate a group of skills that permit you to use the solutions. The second one, the blended learning, it's a mix between the 100% e-learning and a classroom with a Centreon expert that permits you to use the solutions. This is a training that permits you to have the e-learning, the interaction with a system, and also one person, a Centreon expert that can help you to assist you on the solutions. I will show you some figures about the activity, just to have an idea what we did on the professional services. Last year, we lead 156 projects for 900 days of services, 64 training sessions, and 221 customer trends. And for this year, the trend is increasing, as you can see. Move to the next point, the service offer. Before to talk about in details about the service offer, it's important to discuss about the scope because it's really important to know if you are ever enabled to use it. Firstly, it's the conditions. The conditions is to have a support version. So it's very important to propose you this kind of service offer. And on the service offer, you also have some topic. For example, the project management is a key on the services to lead your project. You have the kickoff meeting. This is the first contact between the customer and the professional services. The idea, the content of this meeting is to discuss about your context, your needs, to share elements that permit to configure your installation in order to use the service, and at the end we will try to plan the different tasks we need to do together. After that, after the service offer, we create a minute that include all the completed tasks we did that permit you to have the different steps of your installations. And to complete the project management process, we will send you an acceptance forms and survey. The services include installation and configuration of Centreon, only on Centreon and not infrastructure. That includes Central, Polar, SMAP, MBI. Also, that permits you, propose you to import or export a configuration and in some case, data history from your old platform to the new ones, and also to share best practice or different steps we did on the installations. Autoscope, just to keep in mind that travel and accommodation expenses is not included in the offers and services, and we do not work on non-business hours. It's really important. The service offer expire in 12 months, and we can work on remote on your side. Is it possible? On the next slide, we have two service offers. The service offer are based on the commercial edition. So we have two propositions to you. The first one is on IT edition. As you can see, you have the different topics we discussed before. The first point is the project management, the installation after that, and the migration. The gap between the two service offer is the installation and configuration on map and MBI, because we need more things to do on the second point. On the next slide, that's all for my part.
Okay, there was some option if you are in the high availability.
Yes.
And the slide is missing, but
yes, I think so. We can discuss about that. In case you have an installation and platform on Centreon Achat, is it possible also to manage it? That it will take more time because you have some installation like a quorum and a new central to install. So it will take more time to do it. But is it possible to include it in the service offer?
All right. Well, thank you, Jacques, for explaining to us, all this several and what is professional services at Centreon. You may contact us if you are interested in this service offering, if you want us to help you migrate your platform, or you can contact our partners. You will receive an email after this webinar, and in this email there is a button, and so that you can make an appointment directly to Louise Lamonnerie, with our business development representative, where you can discuss what are your needs, and she will redirect you to the right person at Centreon in order to discuss further how we can help you do this migration. All right, another way to do it that we haven't discussed for now is to not migrate your Centreon platform, but migrate to Centreon Cloud. Centreon Cloud is our SaaS offering. This is the same 2304 features and Centreon platform, and everything is the same, but you could decide to migrate altogether from on-premise to SaaS, and then you will never have to worry anymore about operating system and maintenance and so on and so forth. Okay, it's time for question and answers, and you can still ask your questions in the question and answer tool on the right hand side. There was a first question about, or several questions about the operating system that we support. Do we recommend any operating system? And we didn't talk about Linux Rocky distribution. Can we install Centreon in Linux Rocky distribution? And maybe I will ask Tanguy to unmute and answer the question.
Yeah, I can. Okay, so about the Rocky Linux, I know there are some talks internally here at Centreon about that. At the moment, it is not possible. Maybe in the near future, we don't know. But at the moment, we do not test Centreon on Rocky Linux, so we are not shipping that.
So yeah, the real answer is if you are using an open source version of Centreon, well, fine, you may use Rocky Linux because it's supposed to be the same as Alma Linux. But if you have a supported commercial version, which is supported by our support team, then you need to use Alma Linux, Oracle Linux, or Red Hat, or Debian 11. And another question is, do we have any recommendation on which one of these operating systems we should migrate to? Any preference?
Yeah, okay, so on our side, we do have a preference that is for the free operating system that are going to be Oracle Linux, because we have a lot of customers on that. But most of our newcomers want to use Debian 11 because it is a very popular operating system. But it is quite new to us. It's been a year, so it's working fine. But yeah, so either a Debian 11 or Oracle Linux 8.
All right.
Well, or 9.
Okay. Another question is, we have Central in a separate machine as the database. I guess we can use the new machine, Alba Linux, with the close of Central calling the same database. So let's discuss a case where the database is on a separate server.
Yeah, so yeah, this one is a bit specific and quite interesting. So you can keep your database on another server if the database and the MariaDB version is the right one. So for example, between 22.10 to 23.4, we are still using MariaDB 10.5. So you do not necessarily have to change your server. And yes, as you said, you can just move the central one on a new server and keep reaching the old database server. That's not an issue.
Okay, good. We have 3 minutes left, so I can take another question. One is, we are using a commercial version, so how do we get temporary licenses, because the fingerprint for the double run will be different?
Yeah. So on this topic, you can just reach our support or commercial team, and normally we are going to give you some temporary licenses in order to perform the migration process, and
Yes.
then you have some definitive one when everything is done. So yeah, that's not an issue on our side.
Yes, exactly. Call the support. Maybe one last question. It's about when you are in the brutal method where you copy and paste the database files, should the database DBMS version be the same on between the old and the new server, or can you have two different software versions for the database?
Yeah, okay. So my my favorite method.
Yes.
So the idea is that let's say you have some maybe the oldest version of MariaDB that you can have on a EL7 server might be 10.1, I guess. And let's say you jump onto the 23.4 version of Centreon, which is using the version 10.5 of MariaDB. You can just install the MariaDB 10.5 on the new server, copy and paste the file while the MariaDB process are stopped, obviously. And then you just need to use the MySQL upgrade tool that is provided with MariaDB. And it is going to just update the database structure and such things in order to have everything compliant. So that's not an issue.
So it's not an issue. It's taken care of by the MariaDB upgrade tool. All right. Well, it's time for us to close this webinar. Thank you all for attending, asking your questions. Don't be afraid to ask us for more help. You will receive this email where you can answer questions and ask us to call you back. Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Tanguy, and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.